Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So we want to bring you something hopeful and helpful for your everyday life, whether you've been following Jesus for a while or you're still trying to figure out exactly what you do believe about God. Now, you'll find on this podcast things that'll help with conversations about marriage and parenting and mental health and work, practical things to help you in your faith journey, and a lot more. So whether you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app or you're watching on YouTube, be sure to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everyone, welcome to the Ridge Community Church podcast. So excited. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge podcast. I'm excited to share a conversation that I got to have with Tom and Ashley Cornell. They have an awesome story of just multiple times in their life, just facing some challenging things and then just seeing how they respond to it, seeing how they pursue God in the midst of it is really cool and inspiring to me. And I think there's lots of lessons that we can walk away learning about how do we engage with God in the midst of challenges. How do we pick what God wants for our life versus what we want for our life, and a lot more. So this is my conversation with Tom and Ashley. Well, hi, Tom and Ashley. Thanks for coming on to the Ridge podcast.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we could get things started off with, would you mind just sharing a little bit, and maybe a little bit about yourself and your family and how you started coming to the Ridge?
I'll take that one.
Sure. So Tom and Ashley Cornell started going to the Ridge in, I believe it was 2019, right before the pandemic. We started out going to the old Oak Creek Franklin campus in an old movie theater. And we have two kids, Nora and Liam. Nora is 8. Liam is 5. We have a dog named Oakley. Yeah.
What kind of dog?
She's a mix, but she's a Staffordshire Terrier, which is kind of a bully breed. So she kind of looks like a pit bull, but not as intimidating.
Keeps you busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So did you both grow up? Was like church something that was important to you? Like, was that something that had always been like on your radar? Oh, we want to find a good church. Or did it just kind of happen later in life?
Yeah. So we both grew up Catholic in the Catholic faith. We both attended Catholic school. He went through 8th grade and then went to public schools. And then I went from all the way to senior year in Catholic school. So my family was very involved in the Catholic church. My mom played the piano. My dad was an usher. We were in the choir. We were hands in through the Catholic faith as well. But, as we grew up, and when we got together, we found other non-denominational faiths out there and just really latched on to how the messages were presented and, real life experiences that we could relate to. And so we just felt like that was an easier way to accept God's messages to us. And we have really loved the way of how our faith has grown through this type of style of church.
Yeah, I would say that we were Creasters. We just go Christmas and Easter when we were, first out of college and living in Iowa. And then when we moved to Colorado through a couple different, random pathways, we got invited to a Red Rocks church. And that's where we kind of experienced that first non-denominational setting. And I think that first service, we both cried. Like we were just, we felt spoken to. We didn't really expect when we went in there to both be crying, and we were both crying for different reasons. And we're like, why are you crying? I don't know. It was kind of, it was a kind of a funny little event. But from there moved to Wisconsin and really, really intentionally looked for a place that was similar, and we found the Ridge.
Yeah. So when you first started coming, was the idea of like, did you always think, okay, we're going to get involved, we're going to get totally plugged in? I mean, you mentioned that you kind of had some experience, Ashley, with your parents of, you serve at the church, you get involved, but I don't know if that was that part of your story at Red Rock, or was that kind of like something new?
When we were attending Red Rocks Church out in Colorado, we were involved in like the sports ministry. We played a lot of sports, honestly, like for fun and to meet people.
Yeah, we just participated. We didn't lead in.
We didn't serve. We were in and out, but we still liked that community. Yes. And a lot of our long-lasting friendships are through that sports ministry that we did. But here, when we moved here, I don't think we were totally looking to get involved as much as we are now, but things happen for a reason. Yeah. We had our son in 2019, and like I said, that's kind of when we started attending, and then things, shifted a lot during the pandemic. So we definitely did not attend and did online, here and there. And then when I learned about the OCF campus launching, I was like, okay, I'm a party planner. I like to organize things. So I'm like, hey, well, maybe this is my way of us getting back into the church. So that was really my, nudge from God to, get back into it. And, one thing leads to another. And here we are leading a lot of different things.
That was her nudge. I did not want to do anything. I was more of like, if I went off camera and just kind of stuck half my head in, like that's where I was at the start of the OCF launch. But like a supporting husband, I followed her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so, and it was just talked about in the message a couple of weekends ago, and I'm not sure if you guys were able to hear it, but I talked about this idea of, praying for what God wants, maybe not necessarily always praying for what you want, kind of that balancing act. I imagine there's probably an element of that when you're thinking about getting involved. Like, I don't know how much I want to do this. There's an element to like, does God want me to do that? How did you both just kind of like weigh those two ideas, that like kind of like that wrestling taking match that I know everybody goes through that, right? Like everybody wrestles with that. So what did that look like for both of you?
Well, I mean, all of this is out of just, hoping for a better tomorrow, right? Like all of this is volunteer time. All of this is unpaid. And so for us to really get involved, there is definitely a praying aspect into it. There's a lot of other things that we could be doing with our time, but we feel like it's important for us, it's important for our kids to grow up with having that faith and having that, that drive to always trying to be better, and to like, this is not even like this world that we live on is not even like the coolest place that we have like to look forward to. Like, if you think this world is good, Nora and Liam, like just wait till God returns and it's going to be amazing. So definitely praying about it. It's all about balance, work, family, serving, volunteering. So prayer was definitely involved in all of our decisions.
Yeah, I would say that for me, it was praying, the God thing really didn't really happen for me right away. It was more of, I'm supporting her. Like, she was on the OCF launch team. She's telling me to go to events. I don't want to go to them, so I go to them. But I do go to them because I'm a supporting husband. And so, but I always did have this kind of like, there was always this nudge to give. We live very fortunate lives, and how do we give? And I think the first thing that everyone thinks about when they're giving is just giving money, but giving time is almost as valuable. And so I just, like, for me, I just started saying yes as things kind of came up. And over time, the God thing started, moving in me a lot more, to which, the last year's journey for me personally has been making a lot of decisions so that, I can be more present and try to listen to what, the nudges that God gives me here and there to say, hey, you need to go here, you need to go there, you need to talk to so-and-so for whatever reason. And really just, keep, and so over this last year, really just trying to keep that in mind and know, and listen when, God is talking, or at least I feel like he's talking.
Yeah, so you mentioned like the first starting footsteps were really just like, I want to support Ashley and I'll be a part of it to do that thing. Maybe it makes the transportation situation a little bit earlier if we're driving in together or whatever. Sure. And then at some point your heart just like starts to connect to it. Mm-hmm. What was that shift? Like, was that like all of a sudden there was like this eye-opening moment where you're like, oh my goodness, the stuff that I'm doing makes an impact? Or was it kind of just like that slow progression?
Yeah, so for me, it was, I had the struggle that I was dealing with, and this is within the last year. Had a moment where I kind of looked at my relationship with alcohol and decided it was pretty toxic and wasn't doing any good. Obviously, I mean, it's alcohol, but and in the course of the week, in the aftermath per se, there were so many moments where, like, I felt like I was just being spoken to. Like the very next small group was about being intoxicated with the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, not being intoxicated with alcohol. The next one was, then I went to service on Sunday, and the service was about leaning on God, not leaning on your own ability to overcome things. And then I went to a Celebrate Recovery, and they had a 12-minute video of God chiseling a man into who he's meant to be. And they, at the end, the guy declares his name, and his name is Tommy, to which I'm just like, okay, I hear it. Like, this is all within a week's span. And I'm like, all right. I get it. I need to start going down your path. And, and so I did. And I'm, happy to say that, I've been sober for 9 months. Have no intention of going back. And that was kind of like the inflection point for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems like, there's that moment where you're, congrats on 9 months. That's awesome. Yeah. Where you're just like, God shows up in a powerful way. And, has that filtered like future decisions? Kind of like thinking back to like that, like life change, really?
I mean, in the last year, I quit my job because I was traveling too much, and it was getting in the way of leading small group, leading other groups, being able to participate in celebrations with the church. There was a lot of my occupation was impeding my ability to really, listen and partake in God's glory. And so, I quit. I've been unemployed for the last, month and a half, 2 months, but I do have a job now, so God does provide. But yeah, I mean, there's been some hard decisions that had to be made in order to make sure that I personally was following in the way that I needed to.
What do those conversations look like between you when there's this big life thing that like seems to be this block from the way that God is directing? Is that just like hey, I'm feeling this, and thumbs up, or I'm sure it looks different for each thing. Yeah, between you two, what does that look like? Because I'm sure there's lots of people listening that they've had those similar kind of thought processes they've gone through, where they're trying to like reorganize and reprioritize, but there's a nervousness to make a big switch, to make a life change like that, where it's can be scary. So what do those conversations look like?
I'll let you take this one.
Well, it's definitely communication is key, being open and honest with each other, and really telling each other, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I would like to do. When he said he wanted to quit his job, I initially said no. I was like, nope, we have too many bills. We have too many things going on. But he kept pressing me. So I knew it was really on his heart too. He wasn't happy in this role anymore. And when he had to travel on Easter afternoon, and it was really, our kids were really sad that he had to leave dinner early. And I was like, okay, he's been wanting to, regroup back at home and not travel, and our kids are now sad about him being gone. So I was like, okay, go ahead and quit, and hopefully something comes down the line that will make up for, that deficit. So even though, things don't happen right away, like he didn't get a job the next week or anything, but he does have a job that he's starting in a couple weeks, and it'll be a good role for him right now. And I just had surgery last week, so it's been nice to, a blessing in disguise for him not have a job, for him to help me around and help the kids. And so, if just going back to your original question, just to being open and honest to each other, and, you may have to, make a pros and cons list and figure out like what's going to be best for your family, even if it is really scary. If that's what is going to be best for your family to make that jump and make that big change, then go for it.
Yeah, I think the key is not making an emotional decision too. When she initially said no, it was because my emotions were running high, and he was offsetting them by saying, "No, I don't think you like. Let's talk about this more and hash it out more." And so it definitely wasn't a decision that was made in one day. It was something that we kind of really what we ended up like looking back on. What we both probably did was separate and prayed on it for quite a while, thinking about what it means, what it means for our family, how we'd be financially, all that. And as we moved through it, we answered all of the outstanding questions that we had if this were going to happen. And so over the course of like a month, really, and then, yes, traveling on Easter was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But like that was by that time when it finally hit and we had that burning platform, if you will, we had already discussed and talked through all the hardest parts. And so, so we were much more prepared moving into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's a very realistic portrayal of how to go about that process, where it's not this instant emotional like reaction to something, but yeah, like there's God letting you know something like, hey, it's time to move on from this. How do we do it in a wise way? And having unity on that goes a long, long way in making it.
Oh yes, it does.
Work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. How has that kind of shifted how I guess maybe how you pray? Like there's that element of like you're in the midst of sorry to pick on you so much, Tom. You're in the midst of like a job hunt, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure for both of you, like then there's that prayer for God, provide something. We need something. We need some help on this. And it's very much like, hey, what direction are you leading me to go into? Because you sent me here, God, but where are you going to put me? How do you wrestle through that?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I felt pretty staunch in my faith. I mean, I felt like I was making the right decision to quit. What was next? I had no idea. I did have an idea, though. I had an inroad to another role somewhere else, and went through interviews. Got to the final interview. Over the course of interviewing for that role, that was kind of my network had kind of pegged for me. I got another job offer, and I said no to it. And then I didn't get the job that they said I would. And so then at that point, then I really questioned it. Then I'm sitting there going like, wow, should I just go back to that other job and see if I can accept that position now? And I'll never forget. I mentioned it to Ashley, and Ashley goes, no, don't backtrack. Like you're on a path. Keep going on the path, right? Keep going. Like it'll be okay. And that calmed me. That was like okay. Like right,
he was responding to it out of emotions that time.
Yeah.
And I said, just take a breath. Mm-hmm. Don't reverse steps backwards and try to find the next best thing. Just keep moving forward, because it's a bad path to go backwards to try to find something, the next best thing. So just keep moving forward, and what will happen will happen. And so the best case, just don't make decisions out of emotions. As hard as that is,
I wanted to control the outcome. After after what I thought the outcome would be, where I was being led, or I thought I was being led, ended up not being the plan or the path that God laid before me, right? And so, just continued, kept applying, and eventually, got the bite, and I landed in a spot where I think I'm going to make a much more of an impact in the role that I got than the roles that I thought or my network thought that I should have, right? So it turned out, I think, for the better, because there's a lot, it even allows me more so to continue my path in in being involved in the Ridge too, because the time commitment won't be as much. So it worked out.
Yeah, that clarity of priorities helping make the next decision. I'm really curious. I know that one of the things that people can hear when maybe they're like trying to figure out if they want to follow Jesus, if they're trying to decide, hey, is this true? Sometimes they get a little overpromised that as soon as you make a decision to follow Jesus, everything lines up, everything's golden, everything's perfect. And just knowing a little bit about both your stories, I mean, my story, that's not the case. I wish it worked out. Everything made it real easy and comfortable and all those things, but challenges still come, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about this specific situation. But how have you learned when those challenges come to still be focused on, hey, nope, God is faithful. We're going to follow that direction. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to fall into that trap of, the pity party, I want to just sulk and be sad about all the life challenges that I'm presented to. But, and some people have more challenges than other people. I don't know the answer to why that is, even though they could be doing all the right things as far as in God's eyes, doing all the right things. But some people just are presented with more challenges and obstacles in their life. So I think I have had a fair share of life challenges in my 38 years of existence. But my mom passed away from a rare cancer in 2019. I had breast cancer in 2021. I deal with daily pain, which I had surgery on last week for my knee. There's a lot of challenges that people have. I'm not saying that my challenges are more than other people, but it's not an easy journey to by any means. Even if you have a strong faith base, you are going to be presented these challenges. So how do you get through those challenges with your faith? You have to have a community around you. You have to have your daily habits of getting into the Word and praying with God. You have to have that support from your loved ones and everyone around you. You have to make a conscious effort to be involved somehow. So, we're not meant to be on this earth to be by ourselves. God put all of us on this earth to have community. And so to get through those hard times and those challenges, you got to lean in and not away, because leaning away is not going to do any good. And leaning in will just, God will support you and give you the tools that you need to get through those challenges.
And I think it really comes down to a belief that, there will be valleys, but, they only make you stronger in the end, right? Her mom's diagnosis brought her family together and made them stronger and gave us some of the best years of our lives together with her mom in those final 3 years. And then, with her diagnosis, we've become much closer and, changed even our parenting style a bit to be better for Nora and Liam. And we learned a lot through that experience. I mean, with her knee and everything, hopefully the outcome will be, her prayers will be answered. She won't have pain and she can stay active over the next, 10 to 15 years that we have left until our bodies probably start breaking down. So it isn't always, we're not always going to get answered right away, but having that belief that, these struggles will lead to, better days and teach us, in those moments to really take a step back and assess those priorities and perspectives, change our perspective a little to really be, closer to God and in our prayer life and everything. I think that there's something to be said for that, but it definitely doesn't happen right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in the midst of those, like you're mentioning, leaning in and, that's a challenge. Because the instinct often is to pull away, like you were saying. And so, in hearing your story, it's in the midst of these challenges, these diagnoses, that the response was, oh, how do we say yes to these serving opportunities? How do we say yes to God? Even though maybe the hand you're being dealt doesn't feel like a fair one or a good one. How do you do that?
It's a good question.
Why did you decide to be part of the OCF launch team? Like I was mad. Full transparency. I was very angry with God throughout her whole diagnosis and treatment and everything. So it was not my idea.
Yeah.
So.
I'm very thankful for my parents that they had such a strong faith for our family growing up with my sisters and I. So I'm very thankful that I had that belief, going into young adulthood. Like Tom said before, like, even though we weren't, faithful of going every week, we still had that, that base, that foundation of that faith. So I'm thankful that they were able to provide that for me. So I think that definitely helped, get past that anger stage. Because there's stages of every type of challenge, denial, anger, trying to, what's the word? Bargain. Thank you. Yeah. So, going through all those different stages of challenges, I was very thankful that I was able to lean into my faith and still know that God was in my corner, going to help me get through this, even though some days I didn't know how I was going to. But I was thankful that I saw Forrest's video at the Oak Creek Franklin saying that they were going to launch at a new campus. And I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to get involved. So, you just have to, like you said, you got to lean in, not lean away, because you can fall into a bad hole and really have a hard time trying to get yourself out of that valley if you don't have that support and faith.
Tell them about the song.
Oh, there's a song by Casey Musgraves. She's a country artist that it's called Rainbow. And it talks about, life's storms, but there's usually a rainbow at the end of the storm. And it was like one of my first doctor office appointments after I got the diagnosis. And when I turned my car on after I was leaving that appointment, there's a line at the very end. She sings, "It's all going to be all right." And when I turned my car on, that was the only line that was left in that song. So it was like, gave me goosebumps. I'm like, okay, that's Mom telling me it's all going to be right. Is that God telling me it's all going to be right? Is this just a coincidence? So I really latched onto that song when I was going through my journey too, because I'm like, it's a storm, but it's, if you just ride out that storm, it will all be worth it.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing. That's cool. I got goosebumps too. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very, very strange, but I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, as we wrap up here, thank you both so much for just your time and sharing. I'm just curious if you have any advice for somebody that's listening, and they're weighing. Maybe there's a voice that says, "Hey, get involved, take this faith step, do this thing. But maybe it's not exactly what they have this tension inside himself. There's that internal struggle. I think you both have illustrated very well that, what happens when you say yes, right? And even though you've had every reason to say no. And so I'm just curious, what encouragement would you have for somebody that's trying to wrestle with what God wants maybe versus what they're feeling?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say just because the people that you're going to be around, we're not all walking around saying prayers and talking to God to ourselves the entire time we're with each other, right? Like we're around each other as a community, facing real world problems, facing, different struggles, there's all sorts of stuff, but the one thing that, brings us all together is God. And because of that faith, and just saying yes, that's how God will start moving in you. Mm-hmm. Like it just being around those people, that community that will, hell or high water support you, and truly mean that, because you don't even have to know them very well, but people show up. Mm-hmm. If you just say yes and start, then you're opening that door for then God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus to really speak to you, and that doesn't happen right away. It's not something that comes, a couple weeks in, a couple months in. It hits everyone at different times, but it will happen as long as you stay the course. Mm-hmm. And there's value in staying that course.
Yeah. I mean, I love going to church. It's like my social hour before and after church. I mean, it's like once you get involved and start serving, yes, God moves in you and your faith and your life. But like when you start joining your serving team and you start attending activities and you start in hangouts and, what have you, like you build such great relationships, not just as adults, but like your kids do too with their kids. And it's just an awesome way to build your village, because it takes a village to get through this life. And what better way to have God as your, common source of that friendship to start with. And then if you have that strength and faith-based already, I mean, that friendship and that relationship is just going to grow stronger and stronger. So it's just so cool to see all the opportunities that God has given us after saying yes, and just all the fun times and friendships that we have created because of us saying yes.
If the worst case scenario is, you struggle to get to know God, but now you've built a community around you, I'd say that's a pretty good scenario, because the community itself, I mean, building a community around yourself is of the utmost importance, and we lost that with COVID for sure, obviously, and trying to rebuild that is hard, but by saying yes, you can. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you both for sharing. I love that insights. I love hearing your story and the faithfulness and just seeing how God is working in both of you. And, pretty soon here, maybe we won't have to do set up and tear downs for Oak Franklin. So
he would like that.
Yeah.
It's bittersweet, right? We'll be glad that it's going away, but we'll be sad because now we won't have anything to do.
Yeah, there you go.
They'll find things.
I'm sure you'll find something else. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom and Ashley. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Well, that was my conversation with Tom and Ashley. And there's so many really amazing things, I think, to pick out of that. One is just leaning in towards God, even when we're facing a challenge, just always leaning in despite even if it might be in a difficult time. And one of the ways that we can really do that is through getting involved, is through finding community, is through participating with other people who follow Jesus, and just growing the strength of that to have conversations about God, to have conversations about what you're going through, and to support one another. So I just want to encourage you, if you haven't gotten a chance to get involved in something around the Ridge, whether that's serving, whether that's an activity group, something like that, head over to the description of this podcast episode, and you'll find some links that I think are going to be really helpful as you try to figure out how can you be a part of the things that are going on around the Ridge. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast, and make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations.